Hello everyone, my name is Riley Wildman, and in this presentation I'll be looking to describe and compare this artefact with other contemporary or archaeological examples in order to answer a pertinent question. What is it? The Sea Cow Laboratory at Flinders University contains many artefacts, and this one stood out, particularly because of the second carved head it possessed. This presentation will have a brief look at two other typologies of Indonesian earthenware types and look at some of the archaeological significance of this artefact's creation, some sites where similar types may have been present, and finally concluding by hypothesizing what this artefact's significance was and still may be. ABT2307, as this artefact has been dubbed, possesses characteristics that will be analysed and compared in the next slide, but for now a description of some of the typological factors of the vessel are 11.1 centimeters wide at the widest point, 13.9 centimeters tall, including the second head and lip of the vessel. It is a reddish brown in colour. It is made of low-fired earthenware, possesses carved and paddle-impressed complete suite of anthropomorphic features such as a head, face, ears, nose, mouth, hands, feet, and a navel opening or the belly button. It curiously possesses second head stacked on the first with identical features. The vessel is burnished, leading to an almost glossy sheen, and it is not varnished. There is a hole at the foot of the vessel, similar to at the navel, and it possesses embellishment around the bottom head of the vessel, a decorative symmetrical necklace that possesses triangle and dot motifs. My primary research approach, due to a lack of distinct findings during my study, was to eliminate what ABT2307 was not, rather than try to pinpoint what it is, straight away. Two of the most common vessel types in Southeast Asia are that of the kendi and tempayan. Tempayan have been utilised for many centuries as containment, trade, economic and funerary vessels, but kendi were introduced with the development of maritime trade networks, which saw the advent of regional and sub-regional production variants and are made through a more arduous process, such as that of fine paste ceramics, in which a smoother finish is achieved. Our vessel does not possess the fine paste-based material of the kendi, nor does it possess the characteristic spout. It does, however, possess the taller neck reminiscent of a kendi. It is neither a tempayan, as it is not bulbous enough, and possesses a neck. Tempayan characteristically do not. The most telling factor that it is neither of these types, however, is its lack of size. ABT2307 can be comfortably held in one hand. The other variants are normally very large, with tempayan ranging from 30 centimeters to around a meter in height and width. Kendi are much harder to size, as they vary per example, and are typically individualized heavy. Some are designed purely for function, and others combine function and austerity. I hypothesize that today's vessel is something else entirely. The next slide will display the aforementioned types of Indonesian vessels. Keep in mind these vessels are found all throughout Southeast Asia and island Southeast Asia, and these vessels' styles and shapes can vary in regional and sub-regional contexts. This slide displays the Indonesian regional tempayan and Indonesian fine paste kendi, respectively. Note that the difference in patterning can occur sub-regionally or locally, or be produced in individual extravagant examples. The vessels on this slide have been included in order to display a historical precedent for ceremonial or ritual jars throughout Southeast Asia, and it is important to include them in order to show regional variation. Both jars are earthenware, with the artefact on the left being varnished and the jar on the right being a burnished example. It is important to note that the approximate time period from which the Angkorian Thai jar is from 11th century CE, is similar to the period in which ABT2307 is hypothesized to be from. The early classical Indonesian period this is. The jar on the right, however, is an Angkorian Thai vessel when Thailand was occupied territory of the Khmer Empire. The development of ceramics in a regional and local context in Indonesia led to a wide adoption of patterning and typological variants taking place. This in turn led to the classical Indonesian period of ceramic creation, with local variations and preferences being apparent alongside the swirling, wave-like motifs on Indonesian vessels at the time. This period was also typified by gouging and paddle-impressed techniques being utilised in order to create their regional tempayan. Commonly used are triangle and dot motifs, interspersed with swirls. This was interesting information, as my study led me to identify a triangle motif in a circular pattern, with each triangle having an imprinted dot in the triangle of ABT2307. Early Indonesian ceramic, even those being created in the early classical period, were curated through the use of kiln firing pits, But as time and technology advanced, maritime trade led to the Indonesian kendi being produced with the introduction of fine paste ceramics, of which these variants are less granular and much smoother in texture and appearance. Therefore, I believe ABT2307 to be of kiln-fired low-heat origin, as it possesses a rougher finish and appears that it was heavily burnished. Now, however, some wear and pockmarks are present on ABT2307. Due to the fact that no physical analogues or even Indonesian anthropomorphic vessels could be found in my research, I began my search through description and discovery of similar vessels on site in archaeological excavations. My study led me to the excavations in Sulawesi, Indonesia, where these excavations were at Gua Endomo and Gua Lampetia. However, Gua Lampetia withheld artefacts that hold a similar typological description to that of our vessel. For instance, a few descriptions of Indonesian ceramics that were used as dedications or accompaniments to larger tempayan vessels, and these were explained to possess a deep, burnished reddish-brown colour with carved features. Some were paddle impressed, which may signify status of the person interred within. However, although there were similarities, no stacked heads were mentioned. David Bulbeck's article on their excavation displayed many prehistoric ceramics, but importantly included those from classical Indonesian periods also. An important question I thought to try and answer in this study was, what is it? Through analysing archaeological evidence and various sub-regional vessels, jars and ceramic ware, we've established that it is neither a kendi or tempayan due to its size and general shape. Although its features are anthropomorphic, aside from some carved embellishments around the neck of the vessel, the second stacked head was striking and a real draw factor. I hypothesise that this additional head is to symbolise a supernatural or spiritual quality to the being it represents, perhaps beseeching a blessing or fortune through mortuary practice. Through analysing patterning and typological sub-regional variation, I believe the vessel to be of Indonesian origin, as previously mentioned, and that the patterning used falls within the date range of 5th to 15th century CE, which is the classical Indonesian period, although I do believe it to fall earlier within that period. When analysing it alongside other Southeast Asian examples, I've hypothesised that it is a ritual or funerary gourd, as its typological features bear more of a resemblance with a gourd than a jar, to be more specific, an ablution gourd. In conclusion, it is due to its individual nature that I will surmise that this was a funerary gourd similar to those buried alongside funerary tempayan in Gua Lampetia. What is still rather baffling are the holes in the vessel's navel area, and the hole under the foot of the vessel. Originally, I postulated that that incense may have been held by the gourd by simply inserting the incense stick through the navel hole to rest at the hole in its base. Although this is possible, it is hard to speculate without more evidence. Possible future research points would be to establish any current markers of analogous vessels in present time, and whether there are any other similar vessels on record. Finally, although these are my interpretations and somewhat speculative, it is important to remember that a large amount of archaeological practice can be speculative in general, such as with this brilliant gourd, as it exclusively may represent an individual's take on a funerary gourd, and may very well represent their own stylistic or experiential bias. These are the references that I used throughout my study and my research. Thank you very much for listening.